Most people have no idea, but there's a biblical mystery so deep and yet so overlooked that it could completely change the way you see the spiritual world. And no, we're not talking about parables or metaphors. We're talking about a real showdown between Archangel Michael and Satan himself over a body. Yep, you heard that right. The body of Moses, Israel's legendary leader, became the center of a spiritual battle right after he died. And the real question is, why? This isn't just some random moment tucked away in the book of Jude. It's a spiritual code packed with shocking truths, divine decisions, strategic warfare, and even human mistakes that still echo today. What hardly anyone dares to say, but you're about to discover, is that behind this clash were some seriously dangerous intentions: idolatry, mockery, traps against God's people, and an attempt to humiliate God himself. All of it happening in an invisible realm that's more real than anything you can see with your eyes. If you've ever felt like something bigger is happening behind the scenes of your life, this story's about to blow your mind wide open. We're diving straight into this mystery to uncover truths that could completely transform your faith walk. But fair warning, once you understand why Satan wanted that body so badly, you'll never look at spiritual warfare the same way again. Most people don't realize it, but even after someone dies, the spiritual world keeps moving, and that's exactly what happened with Moses. What seemed like the end of a journey was actually the start of a fierce war between good and evil. On one side, Archangel Michael, on the other, Satan. But this wasn't just about a body, it was about a soul with serious spiritual weight, and that triggered a battle way beyond human understanding. Jude 1:9 gives us a glimpse of this scene, and it's not just about a face-off. It's a reminder of how much God values his servants, even after death. Sure, Moses had messed up, but his story with God didn't end with his last breath. Satan, sneaky as always, tried to claim the body. But why? Out of pride? To mock God? Or maybe to tarnish the reputation of one of the most spiritual figures in history? Every single detail of this fight holds deep lessons about spirituality and inner strength. And here's where most people miss the real deal. The battle over Moses wasn't just about him. It was about the spiritual legacy he carried. Think about it. If Satan had gotten his way, what would he have done with the body? Turn it into an idol? Twist the memory of a prophet? I mean, look around today. How many people worship human figures more than they actually follow Jesus? That was the plan all along, and it was way darker than it looks on the surface. What's wild is that even though Michael had the power, he didn't come in swinging or shouting. Instead, he called on the name of the Lord. That teaches us something huge. It's not about who yells louder, it's about who knows who to trust. Real spirituality takes awareness, humility, and deep faith, and that's exactly the mindset that starts to pull back the next layer of this story. Now here's a detail almost everyone misses. God himself buried Moses. That's right, the creator of the universe dug a grave that no one has ever found. That wasn't some random symbolic act. That was a powerful spiritual strategy done with full awareness. God knew the people had a dangerous tendency to turn the sacred into something they could worship physically. Just imagine if folks knew where Moses was buried. How many would have turned that place into a holy site, stepping away from real faith just to build empty rituals around a tomb? Think that's far-fetched? Look at today. So many people chase anointed objects, relics, sacred places, and forget the real power is in God's presence, not in stuff. That mysterious burial sends a loud message. True spirituality doesn't lean on human crutches. It requires depth. It demands focus on God, not on people or monuments. And if you really think about it, that principle applies to our lives too. How often do we put more faith in people than in Jesus, in titles, pastors, influencers, or even lucky objects? That's where it gets dangerous. God's decision was a surgical cut to stop the idolatry before it started. He protected Moses, he protected the people from themselves, and he kept the focus exactly where it belongs, on genuine worship, spiritual awareness, and a real connection with the Most High. And that brings us to something deeper, something Moses did before he died that didn't go unnoticed by God. No matter how spiritual someone is, they're still human, and humans mess up. That's what happened with Moses. Caught in a mix of frustration, impatience, and maybe even a little spiritual pride, he disobeyed God at a key moment. Instead of speaking to the rock like God told him, he struck it. Sounds small, right? But it revealed a consciousness issue, and God sees the heart. That one act exposed something deeper, the struggle to fully surrender to divine direction. Moses had seen God work countless miracles, and even then, in a moment of heat, he acted on impulse. It's a reminder that even the strongest among us can stumble if we're not tuned into God's voice over our own. It's a quiet warning, but a powerful one. And the consequence? Heavy. Moses got to see the promised land, but not enter it. Imagine that heartbreak. A lifetime of leading, facing down obstacles, staying faithful, and in the end, not crossing the finish line. That right there shows us that real spirituality demands total obedience, not 99%. All of it. The strength of the journey lies in consistency, and that applies to everything: marriage, career, purpose, and faith. But here's the beautiful part. Even with his mistake, God didn't abandon Moses. Quite the opposite. He took care of his body, protected his memory, and, as we'll see soon, honored him in a supernatural way. And that's when the boldest character in the story makes his move, the one who tried to use that mistake as fuel for a spiritual attack. Satan never plays fair, and he never plays small. When he realized no one knew where Moses' body was, his twisted mind started scheming. One plan? Block any chance of resurrection or divine honor. He knew how valuable Moses was spiritually. This was about snuffing out the light of someone who, flaws and all, still carried eternal purpose from God. Another dark strategy: turn the body into an idol. Sounds extreme. Not really. Humans have this dangerous habit of clinging to figures instead of the message. And Satan could have easily manipulated people into building temples, altars, shrines, all around a lifeless body. He's a master of disguising idolatry as reverence. But he didn't stop there. Accusing Moses of his past failures, that was another low blow. Ever hear that inner voice reminding you of your old mistakes right when you're trying to get back on track spiritually? Yep, that's one of the enemy's go-to weapons. He tries to trap us in who we were so we can't step into who we're meant to be in God. The spiritual power we carry only gets released when we walk in forgiveness through Jesus. And maybe the most twisted idea of all, Satan mocking God by hijacking the body of one of his greatest leaders, like saying, "Look who I've got." But that plan didn't go as he hoped, because on the other side stood Michael. And Michael wasn't just some angelic warrior. He knew how to move under real authority, and that's what we're about to dig into. Picture this. The scene is tense. Satan's throwing his weight around, all arrogant, and Michael, calm, steady, humble. And this might surprise you. He didn't fight back with rage. He didn't yell or try to prove himself like some movie superhero. Instead, he said just one thing: "The Lord rebuke you." That's it. Showing us that true spiritual power isn't about flexing. It's about knowing the source of your authority. There's a deep truth here. Sometimes, defeating evil isn't about clashing head-on. It's about calling on the right name with full awareness. And Michael got that. He didn't try to show off his heavenly status. He didn't get pulled into an ego match. He handed the fight over to the one who rules over all. That's the secret. Mature spirituality knows when to fight and when to trust. A lot of people, when they're under spiritual attack, see whether it's temptation, fear, inner conflict, or doubt, try to fight on their own, reacting out of panic, forgetting that the real power is in connection with God, not in personal effort. Here's something practical. In the heat of a spiritual battle, don't scream. Pray. Don't clap back. Speak the word. Quoting Psalm 91 might do more than 1,000 arguments. Michael shows us strength with humility, authority with reverence, and that kind of posture, that's what unlocks real spiritual victories. It also reveals something bigger going on in this story. This wasn't just about protecting a body. There was a whole spiritual lesson in play, one we still need today. This whole story, as mystical and intense as it seems, is a spiritual blueprint, hidden in just a few verses of the Bible. The first big takeaway? Idolatry. God knows how easily our hearts wander. If we get thrown off by compliments or shiny objects, imagine the chaos over a leader's body. God's showing us here that true spirituality doesn't need relics. It needs awareness and living faith. Next lesson, forgiveness. Moses messed up, and God still had his back. That's a clear message that sincere repentance carries more weight with God than your past mistakes. It's like heaven shouting, "Hey, you're not what you did. You're who you choose to become from here on out." And honestly, that's the kind of message that lights a fire in anyone trying to start over with Jesus. We also learn about spiritual resilience. Satan doesn't sleep. He takes every opening, every doubt, every unresolved emotion. But the answer is in active faith. It's not about having a struggle-free life. It's about having the right posture during those struggles. Some advice: memorize verses. Practice silence when you're being tempted. Fast when your mind feels foggy. These small things carry spiritual power far beyond what we can see. And last but not least, we learn about purpose. God didn't lose sight of Moses, even with his flaws. And the same goes for us. There's a spiritual battle over each of our lives, but there's also a promise. And when you get that, you start to see why God hides certain things and reveals others at just the right time. Now that you've seen everything behind this fight over Moses' body, let me ask you, how many times have you ignored what's going on in the invisible parts of your own life? How often have you let your faith go cold, thinking everything was fine, when in reality, the spiritual world was at war for you? Truth is, every single detail God reveals in this story is a wake-up call to rise up, get stronger, and take your stand with Jesus. So what's it going to be? Are you going to keep letting the enemy use your past failures as ammo? Or are you going to be like Michael and trust in God's power instead of trying to fight with your bare hands? The choice is yours. And if this message even slightly stirred something in your soul, then maybe it's time to do something about it. What parts of your life do you need to spiritually reclaim? What's hidden that needs to be brought into God's light? Drop a comment and let me know what hit you the most in this story. And hey, if this video taught you something new, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and share it with someone who needs to understand the spiritual power behind every detail in the Bible.